Hello everybody, this is the Love Yourself Guru and welcome to the Love Yourself TV. Today we're going to be doing a really interesting video on identity-based habits, which is a concept created by writer and speaker James Clear. James Clear spent most of his life, his professional life, focusing on habits, decision-making and continuous improvement. Identity-based habits comes from his #1 New York Times bestseller, Atomic Habits, an absolutely brilliant book. Now, Clear believes that while talents and genes do play a role in your success, if you don't have the right habits, if you don't implement the right habits in your life to actually support and to bring out those genes and talents, then you're not really going to be successful. You need to have habits to support the talents and the genes that you've got. He also believes that setting goals can provide direction and they can motivate you, but that's only short-term success. For long-term success, you need to have systems in place in your life with good habits, small wins, and focusing on the process rather than the end in mind. So let me explain that a little bit. So he believes that instead of focusing on the goal of finishing the book, focus on the process of writing, focus on the process of being a writer, focus on the habits of being a writer. And he believes, which I back him, I truly believe that will bring long-term success. So let's say, I remember him listening to him and he's saying once, so let's say if you wanted to clean your room, you cleaned your room, okay? It was a mess, you cleaned your room. And then your goal was to clean it and you cleaned it. And it was clean for 1 or 2 days, but then a couple of days later, it just got messy again. Well, you completed that goal, you cleaned your room, but it got messy again. Why? Because you didn't focus on the process of having a habit of being tidy. So if you actually focused on the process of being tidy, then when you actually clean your room, it won't get dirty again. So that's an example of focusing on the process, not the goal. Like I said, one of my favorite ideas in his book was identity-based habits, which is basically when you intentionally focus on the person you would like to become rather than only focusing on the desired outcome. So let's say, for instance, instead of focusing on writing a book, Instead of focusing on writing a book, focus on being a writer and the process of writing every day. So let's go back to the basics, okay? We make choices every day. Choices that we repeatedly make are called habits. Habits are things we do most of the time without thought, like brushing your teeth every morning. Well, I hope you brush your teeth every morning. Now, however big or small, good or bad habits are, they accumulate over time, and these habits create your reality. That's why it's so important to know your habits, to be aware of what habits you've actually picked up over time. So if you really think about it, the quality of your life depends on the habits that you've developed over the years. And this is a quote from James Clear: "A look at a person's daily choices will reveal where he or she will be 10 to 20 years from now." Isn't that really interesting? That if you actually look at your life and you see the habits that you've taken on now, that will probably, God willing, that would be like an insight into your life in 10 to 20 years time, because they're going to accumulate, be it healthy or unhealthy, they're going to accumulate. Okay, so habits matter and habits shape your life. And so let's say, for instance, you decided to go on a food binge and you decided to order a big pizza and buy 2 tubs of ice cream and let's just throw a piece of chocolate cake in there. You probably wake up the next morning a bit sluggish, but it's not really going to affect you. It's not really going to make that much of a difference. But if that becomes a habit and you did it every single day, then you would really see how your life and your health would be heading. Okay, so let's do this. Identity-based thinking is thinking about who you want to be rather than only focus on what you want to achieve. So let's say that you decided that you wanted to run a marathon. What would you normally do? Like when you decide to do something, what you normally do? So you probably set a goal and say, well, my goal is to run this marathon. And then you would set another goal that I'm going to run every day. And then you do that, but then after about a week, you stop running. And you don't know why. You still want to run that marathon, but you couldn't sustain that habit. You couldn't keep that habit up. Or let's say that you decided that you wanted to write a book. Again, you would set a goal that I want to write a book. And so you would say, well, another goal that I would want to write every day. And then you begin to write for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, you just go back to not writing and probably watching a movie or something. So what's happening? Why, if you look back at your life, you've probably set loads of goals and they've not actually followed through. And I think I read that New Year's resolutions and goals by February, most people, I think it was 80%, if I'm wrong, please just Google it, 80% have already quit. But so what's happening every time you actually set a goal? Why isn't it becoming a habit, what you want to do? James Clear actually defined why, and honestly, once it clicked with me, it was just life-changing. And it's because, and this is where identity-based habits comes in. So your identity is what you believe about yourself. That's your identity. It's the story that you keep on playing over and over again in your mind. Okay, and this story, you're actually wired to believe the story that you're playing. And so over time, you adopt habits and behaviors in line with this story. So if you set a new goal and you try to integrate habits in line with this goal, it's probably not going to go through. It's not going to sustain because you've not changed your identity. You've still got that same old belief system going and that same old story running in your mind over and over again. So what do? So you set a new identity. You choose a new identity, and then when you actually want to create new habits, they'll probably keep on going because they're aligned with your new identity, and you'll be focusing on the process, and you'll have long-term change and success, God willing. So let's say that you want to, like the example that I gave you, that you wanted to write. Well, you're not identifying yourself as a writer, are you? But with this approach, you would say, okay, I want to complete a book. Well, I don't want to focus on that because that's just a goal, completing that book. Who completes books? Writers complete books. So what shall I focus on? Well, I'm going to focus on my new identity. I'm a writer. It's just a game changer. And so if you identify as being a writer, what habits do writers have? Well, they write. They write probably 1,000 words every day. Well, that's what I'm going to do. Why? Because I'm a writer. I have a new identity. I'm a writer. I've changed the story. What do writers do? They write every day. And so you focus on first of all, your new identity, you're a writer, and then you focus on the process, writing every day. And if you actually did that, you wouldn't write one book, you'd probably write 10 books. So it's really clever. It's so clever. It's not focusing on the end in mind. It's not focusing on the book. It's focusing on your identity. Again, let's say if you wanted to run a marathon, well, who are people that run marathons? They're marathon runners. So all of a sudden you have this identity of being a marathon runner. I'm a marathon runner. What do marathon runners do? What habits do they do? Well, they run every day. Well, obviously I'm going to do that now because I identify myself as a marathon runner. It's really interesting. It's a game changer. Once you change the story, once you actually define your identity and you change the story, then the habits to match that story will naturally fall into place, and then you won't even get the results that you want. You'll get even more because you're focusing on the process involved with that new identity. You're not just focusing on the end in mind. You're actually focused on being a writer and being a marathon runner. And then throughout the day, you would make decisions based on your identity. So let's say, for instance, you're a marathon runner and then you wanted, again, I'm so sorry, the Love Yourself guru loves her food, so I'm a foodie. Let's say you wanted to eat, I don't know, go through a few days and go on a food binge. You wouldn't really do that because you're a marathon runner. That's not what marathon runners do. It's going to affect your running. It's going to affect your running. So it really, you take on this identity and then you take on habits in line with that identity. And then throughout the day, your choices will be aligned with that identity. So if you, good or bad choices will depend on your identity, your story. Really interesting. Okay, so then I've got here, okay, James, he actually shows us how to do this. Okay, so it's a really interesting concept. How do we do this? How do we change the story? What's the process involved? Number one is to write down what you want to achieve. So let's say, let's go back to the book. Okay, I want to write a book. Okay, so you write down, I want to write a book. So then you think, number two is, write down what kind of person would accomplish this goal in one sentence. Well, it would be a writer. A writer would write a book, right? So that's your new identity. There you go, you found it, you're a writer. And then number three is you write down 5 incredibly small steps, 5 very small steps to become that person. Okay, so write down or research and then write down 5 little steps, 5 little habits that a writer or whatever you want would actually do. And then number 4 is integrate each habit, each step every week. Okay. So let's say, for instance, a writer would be, they write every day, and you could start really small. You could start with, for instance, 100 words a day, because he also says that when you start small, you actually start to get into the habit of writing every day. So it's just 100 words, but you actually, and it will probably increase and it will accumulate over time. Another thing a writer would do would probably read. So let's say you would say, I'm going to read 2 pages every day. Start small and 5 steps, 5 little habits aligned with your new identity, and really, really believe, take on this new identity. Change the story, and then the habits that you want to implement in your life, God willing, will be aligned with that story, and you'll get the results that you want. Now, this is an extract from James Clear's website on how identity-based habits have changed his readers' lives. This is from his website, okay? So I'm just going to read it. One reader named Ronald used the idea to improve his eating habits. Listen to this. I stopped eating unhealthy food via identity change. He wrote, I tried many times in the past, but it became easy and natural only after I had made the conscious decision that I want to be someone who eats healthy. So his new identity was somebody that eats healthy food. Instead of aiming for what I want to eat, instead of aiming for, I want to stop eating bad food, so that was his goal, I want to stop eating bad food, I tried changing the mindset, changing the story, to I am someone that eats healthy and lives a healthy life. It changes how you approach things. So originally, his goal was, I want to stop eating bad food. Well, he didn't change the story. So then he changed the story to, I am someone who eats healthy and lives a healthy life. And then his whole approach to life changed. All his habits changed because it's aligned with your identity. Okay, another reader named Robert employed this idea to help him quit smoking. He wrote, I recently stopped smoking, and the difference between I don't smoke and I can't smoke is a powerful trainer of my brain. The positive message of I don't smoke is that that I have not given up. Anything, I am not sacrificing a pleasure. I'm not giving up anything. I am not sacrificing a pleasure. I am investing in my future happiness and well-being. So when he tried to stop before, it was, I can't smoke. I can't smoke. And when you say to yourself, I can't smoke, when that's your story, well, you're going to feel like smoking, aren't you? But then he changed his story to, I don't smoke. I'm a non-smoker. Well, what do non-smokers do? Anything but smoking. They don't smoke. See, he changed the story. Like most strategies in the book, the concept of identity-based habits can be combined with other habit-building tactics. For instance, one reader used an external reward of $10 to reinforce his desired identity. I told myself I am no longer a drinker. Then after each day of not drinking, I gave myself $10 to buy something nice rather than poison, like clothes and household items. Today, I no longer need the allowance and I'm 6 years sober. How amazing. So he actually used this concept and he changed his identity to, I'm no longer a drinker. And people that identify themselves as no longer a drinker, well, what do? They don't drink. Really interesting. So, conclusion, my lovelies, my beautiful ones, is don't focus on the end in mind, focus on the process and everything will fall into place, God willing. Decide what you want, change your identity, integrate habits aligned with your new identity, and simply be that person by doing what that identity would naturally do. Take on that identity. We finished the video. I hope you found it really interesting. Kindly click to the subscribe button, and kindly, if you liked the video, press the like button. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Stay in tune for the next video. I love you loads. Have a brilliant, beautiful, amazing day.